If you've ever dreamt of stepping outside your door, picking your own lettuce, or pulling up carrots, or even harvesting a basket of tomatoes, but you're not sure where to start, or you think your garden or balcony or soil isn't good enough, well then this video is exactly for you. Today I'm going to show you how you can start your own small food garden anywhere, in the ground, in the raised beds, in pots, on balconies, or even vertically up a wall. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to grow, how to grow it, and how to slowly expand your backyard homestead into something truly life-changing. So before you go out there and go and buy your seeds, first plan your setup. Plan your garden, where you want to plant things, where to put your raised beds, where to put pots, because you need to think of where the sun is. Remember, most of your crops want between 6 to 8 hours of sun, and don't worry if you don't have that 6 to 8 hours sun and you've got partially shaded areas. You guys can grow things like beets and carrots, peas. But if you do have that sunny spot, things like tomatoes and cucumbers absolutely love sunny spots. So just remember, try and just go outside, just check the direction of the sun, and don't be like me. My first year in growing, I decided to grow at the end of the homestead. What happened was it only got about 5 hours of sun until the sun went over the house and that area was shaded out. So I only got the late morning sun. My crops did do okay, but it could have done better if I had just planned it. So in the second year of homesteading, I actually moved my little homestead that I had, which was only 3 raised beds, outside the kitchen, and I think I had about 8 double raised beds. So once again, I didn't plan the setup, and the sun actually went down before like 2 o'clock, because in summer we have a huge tree that bears leaves, and the sun wasn't the same height as winter. In winter, that tree had absolutely no leaves, so we end up having more sun outside the kitchen. So just plan it, because I think I'm pretty established now. We've decided to go along the wall here because this part of the homestead gets between 6 to 8 or even more hours of sun, and it absolutely thrives. These beds on this side get the shade before this side, so everything actually worked out perfectly. I'm still learning about what crops to grow where, and I think that next season might be better. This is, I think, the second year of me having the homestead in this area, and I'm pretty much chuffed with the results. So also another thing is, don't go and grow a whole bunch of crops. As a beginner, start with about 4 to 6 crops, and maybe your beginner crops. So you're looking at things like beets and carrots, lettuce, zucchinis, cucumbers, tomatoes. These are very nice, easy crops, even kale and spinach. So start there, and before you know it, you will be expanding on your crop selection every single year. I'm at a stage where I'm like, I don't have enough space and I would love a little farm. But until then, I'll have to deal with what I've got here, and I'm making use of the raised beds. But yeah, we'll talk more about raised beds later on. So growing in the actual ground is simple and easy, especially if you've got good soil. All you have to do is take out the grass, weed it, and add some compost and start planting. That's basically it. But what if you, like me, and you have really, really bad clay soil? My whole back garden is full of clay soil, and I remember my plants not thriving in the ground, and also realizing that when it rains, this whole back garden actually just gets flooded, and my trees and my plants were just sitting in water, but the water wasn't going in the ground because of the clay. It was like hovering on top. I lost about 2 fruit trees, and my production was none, basically. The flowers weren't thriving, and even though clay soil has some nutrients, there is disadvantages in having clay soil. So that is why I use raised beds. I can also control the soil that I put in my raised beds, but with clay soil, it is so dense that the drainage is really poor. It also compacts easily, so it basically suffocates the roots. And I first-handedly experienced that. It was a sad year for me to have to learn that lesson, but every season I'm learning something new, and I'm just making sure that the next season I learn from it and I make a solution. And if you want to speed up the process, then option 2 is raised beds. And trust me, it has changed the way I garden. Since going to raised beds, I've been able to grow the crops I want, and there's so many pros more than cons for why I use raised beds. A lot of people will not agree with me in using raised beds, but this is basically your choice of what you can afford and what you want to use. So the reason I use raised beds is because I like the look. I love that woody look. It also fits nicely in the space that I've got. I've got over 18 raised beds in my little homestead, and they're all doubled raised beds. And if I had to go with other options like your metal raised beds, I financially cannot do that. So this is a cheaper option, and in the future you will have to replace your wooden raised beds. I've had them going on to 5 years now, and they're doing pretty well. They say between 5 to 8 years they will last. I've had them since the day I started homesteading, and now doing pretty well. I have come across maybe 2 that are starting to rot at the bottom. So what we actually did is, on this side by the wall, we did a layer of brick, and then we put the raised bed, so it's not sitting in that wetness. And with the middle raised beds, unfortunately, we've got them on the ground. But looking to the future, we are wanting to slowly, one by one, take each raised bed and replace it with bricks, and that would just be a life changer. Now, raised beds are awesome to have because you are able to control your soil quality here, and we have our own compost that we have at the homestead, where we actually top up our raised beds, as well as bought store compost that I just mix with my homemade compost, and we top it up. We've not had a problem. There's just so much nutrients in there because I know what I chuck in my compost bin, but I can control the soil quality in my raised beds. I know it has really good drainage, and also it's not hard on my back. I can just kneel like this and get to my crops, where if it was in the ground, I'll have to go a little bit lower. So this is very easy on my lower back, and I do have lower back problems. So these are the pros in having raised beds. Also, raised beds in spring warm up faster, so you can get that head start in spring, get your seeds in and get your plants going. Also, raised beds are easy to maintain, as in there's less weeds than if it was grown in the ground, and I just love it. It's nice for small little spaces. You can get smaller raised beds and you can get bigger raised beds. You can get square raised beds. So if you need something a little bit thinner than the raised beds I've got here, then you're able to get that. It will be able to fit in some corners in that, and overall I just think they look awesome. They just blend in with nature. There's so many different options of raised beds you can go for, and we've spoken about the wooden raised beds. They are affordable. They absolutely do the job, and the only con that I can think of is that in the future you will have to replace your raised beds. It takes between 6 to 8 years for it to actually break down. I've had my raised beds going on to 5 years and they're doing pretty well. I'm only starting to see now small little signs of it only on the inside starting to rot. And if you're looking for something that is budget friendly, this is where I would actually start. You also then get your metal raised beds, and these are a little bit more expensive. I've got 18 beds in my back garden, so I know that I can't budget for 18 raised beds. It is just way too much. But then you can get your center blocks or your bricks. That is something we are considering to do and replace the wooden raised beds. So another thing you can use will be things like grow bags. It's not really a raised bed, but it's a solution if you're on a balcony. So you can just go and place a whole bunch of fabric bags along the wall of your balcony, and you can grow things like tomatoes. You can even trellis cucumbers up there. You get a nice cage, and the cucumbers will be able to grow, and the cucumbers can actually hang over the cage. You can grow spinach, you can grow lettuce, and if you've not seen the videos on the different raised beds that I've spoken about, go take a look at that video. I actually tell you about the pros and the cons of using, I think I speak about 3 or 4 types of raised beds you can use. But also, if you don't have a garden or a patio or anywhere to put raised beds, my sister has a balcony only, and we've actually put a pot with a lemon tree there, and she actually showed me recently that it started to flower, which is absolutely awesome. And then just around her wall we put some containers that we've put some herbs in and some flowers. But as I said, fabric bags, you just put it along your wall and you can grow an abundance of food just on your balcony. If you don't have a balcony and you don't have a garden or a patio, I know everyone has a windowsill, so that is where I kind of like started my homesteading journey. I used to put little cups and I used to put little herbs along my windowsill. When we moved into this house, I saw a bigger opportunity, and even though in the first 3 years of homesteading I made so much mistakes on where to place my raised beds and learning from growing in the ground, the situation at the homestead with clay soil, I managed to find a solution. My solution was raised beds. It's like a little forest here, especially in spring, summer, where everything just starts growing over the arches. I can sit here, and sometimes I forget that I'm in the suburbs. So yeah, guys, I live in the suburbs and I've got this beautiful homestead. When you get started with your raised beds, how do you fill them up? Well, don't go out there and buy a whole bunch of compost, because that's what I did in my very first raised bed that I got. I had a single raised bed, then I moved it to a double raised bed. But after filling the very first raised bed, I was like, I can't afford to buy compost to fill raised beds. So after Googling and that and learning how to fill them up, it actually works. So what you want to do is right at the bottom of your raised bed, I actually put some cardboard boxes. That just helps with the weed and the grass growing up. And then you want to put things like broken logs and twigs and any branches that you've maybe got lying around in that. That just helps fill up that gap. Then what I do is that I take all my grass clippings and I try and put that on top in the gaps in that. I put leaves inside there, I put toilet rolls in there. So anything organic that can break down, I throw it in my raised beds. So when you've gone and done that, the top of your raised bed, you're going to just fill it up with 50% of compost, 30% of topsoil, and 20% of cocoa peat and perlite. And basically that is what I use. So over time, my compost, the soil actually does drop, and then I'll just fill it up every single year. As I said, we do our own compost, so I use our compost. I do throw some bought store compost in with my compost, mix it, some more perlite, and then I fill up my raised beds. So that's how you fill up your raised beds without going and spending so much money on just getting like a truck full of topsoil and compost. So with raised beds, it allows you to actually grow things a little bit closer together. So do things like companion planting. So you can just tuck in like some herbs in the corner or around your plants. You can do tomatoes growing up your trellis. 95% of my tomatoes are indeterminate tomatoes, meaning that they just keep flowering and giving me fruit. I pick them, they keep on flowering and giving me tomatoes. I keep picking them, and they'll just trellis up this string that I've made for them. But underneath, you can plant a whole bunch of herbs. I like to do things like kohlrabies. I like to do things like basil. And I even put some cucumbers at the back. So with raised beds, just try and use as much space as possible with crops that don't hurt each other. At the back there, I've got all my cucumbers, and I decided to go a little bit overboard with cucumbers this season, but all these cucumbers will start growing upwards. The ones right at the back, I've got this green trellis, and they'll grow, and I'll just keep on clipping them to this green trellis, and the cucumbers will hang. Then I've got these strings, and I'll also make sure that I clip cucumbers to the string just for support. So that is fantastic. At the back here, I've got some beautiful sugar snaps. These are actually peas. You can actually eat peas raw. They're kind of quite nice. But the skin of these peas are so sweet. Take the peas. So no matter how small your space is, you can grow more by growing upwards. So try things like trellis for cucumbers, peas, and beans. You can see that I've got my beans on this trellis. I've got my bush beans at the bottom there, and these guys are starting to make its way up this trellis. You'll see that they'll start latching onto my strings and growing up, and they're doing pretty amazing in this bed. You can even do things like hanging baskets. You can see that I got a few over there with strawberries. So over here you can see I've got a ladder garden, and these are for my cucumbers. And growing vertically just basically gives you more food, better airflow, cleaner fruits, and fewer pests. So the next exciting step is eggs, and if you're going to go with chickens, they are great egg layers. You'll need more space for them, and we are very, very blessed to have a side of the house where there is a place where we can actually put gates on either side and make sure that the chickens are safe. So our girls are on antibiotics, not being able to use their eggs for the last like 2 months now. So we've had to dispose of their eggs. No one can eat it, not even the animals. Come, there you go. So they're all egg-laying chickens. We have one male, Camo. This one, you can see her wattles is the wattle is bigger. So this is Jessie. We have 3 broody chickens. This one is Sophia. This one's Boots. And then we've got Jackie playing in the sand there, and then we've got Shadow, who is broody, and then our other Rhode Island Dolly, she's broody. So remember, you don't need acres of land. You can grow things like sweet potatoes. You can even put your peppers, your chilies, lettuce, anything in these grow bags. You can put things in pots. But if you thought you needed land for fruit trees, well, I grow all my fruit trees in pots. Check these beautiful gala apples that are growing at the homestead, and we've got more flowers. And this is all grown in a beautiful big pot where I can actually control the soil in here. We've got 2 tamarilla plants, one in a pot and one in a raised bed. And look at the beautiful tamarillas that is being produced. Absolutely gorgeous. We've got 2 custard apple trees, and we've got one in a grow bag and one in a small pot that size. A lingcot plant. And then if you guys check my video out, we did an amazing harvest of our cherries, and that's all growing in a pot. If I come over here, you can see that we've got the Granny Smith apples here, and there's a beautiful flower here as well, and this is absolutely doing amazing. Got our first apricot tree that we bought this year, and we should be able to harvest this maybe tomorrow actually. And we've also got a pomegranate that is growing in a pot. This is the 8-ball, and got beautiful purple little pomegranates. You can see this is called the 8-ball, and it's in a very small pot compared to all of the other ones. So this will be in a bigger pot next year. And then I've got things that I've grown from seed. This is my cypress pomelo. I've got 2 of these. I've even got a white Giona fig tree grown in a pot, very young one. Then here's the other tamarilla plant that's growing in my raised bed at the end of the homestead, and it's producing these most amazing fruits. So we've just had a hailstorm last week which hit the homestead, and the plants are actually trying to recover from there. So you'll see in some videos that there is some broken leaves like this. It's only because of the hailstorm. But this is butternut growing in pots, and you can see I'm using a trellis to trellis this up. Eventually it will go upwards and hang. So that is pretty cool. It's one way to save on space on the ground. We've got the hanging baskets there with strawberries, and the homestead is just looking absolutely amazing. So you don't need acres of land to grow food. All you have to do is just start. So go take a look at the video where I explain how to grow fruits in pots in a small space, and also how to grow things in raised beds. I'll see you over in that video.